Hello team, welcome to another ATP Geopolitics video with myself, Jonathan MS Pitts. This is Ukraine War News Update, the second part thereof for the 20th of November 2024. It's a military aid and assistance video. I have just been pulling my hair out, what few I have left on my head, just seeing the rhetoric that's coming out of the incoming administration in the US and just thinking, goodness me, there's absolutely no space left for any belief that there's going to be any support for Ukraine going forward. They are just, it's shot. It is shot. So anyway, we're going to look at military aid, but I might have a few things to say in the geopolitics video coming up. The writing does seem to be on the wall. Right, okay. The US has allowed, apparently, Ukraine to use British Storm Shadow missiles for strikes deep into Russia, according to The Times, citing sources. The publication notes that the position of British Prime Minister Keir Starmer on the use of Storm Shadow missiles has recently changed. He had previously opposed it. In early November, the Telegraph reported that Macron and Starmer would try one last time to convince Biden to grant permission, as the US had been against it. It's been back and forward. Who knows? What my thoughts have been that this has been an American thing, and that it appears now the Americans have allowed the British to, or the Ukrainians to use the British missile. Now, interestingly, at the same time, French aid to Ukraine reports from Politico that, quote, two French officials said Paris doesn't need Washington's approval to let Ukrainians use them. That's the Scalp Missiles, the French version of the Storm Shadow cruise missile. But so far, there is no sign of Kyiv using Scalps on targets out inside Russia. Now, of course, the issue is also that there won't be too many of these missiles, likewise with ATACMS. So although there's been all this heated discussion about the use of Western weapons deep into Russian territory, actually, it really is dependent. The effectiveness is completely dependent on the number of missiles they have. There's possibly a little bit of panic now from some Russians as they are hearing about the potential use of Storm Shadows already. Yes, it is reported that a squad of Storm Shadow low observable tactical cruise missiles is approaching from the Gulyai-Polye operational direction at an echelon of 150 meters. The Pantsir S-1 anti-aircraft missile and gun system and the S-400 anti-aircraft missile system are ready to intercept enemy missiles. Update, also missile squads are approaching Primorsko-Akhtarsk and the Crimean Bridge. There is a rumor that the Russians are, or Atesh has reported, the partisan group has reported that the Russians have moved air defenses from Yevpatoria to the Crimean Bridge, the Kerch Bridge. This is evidence, I think, of further panic that Storm Shadow and Scalps are going to be used to hit the Crimean Bridge. But anyway, just telling you what they're thinking, they're saying, the Russians. Now, moving on, the Pentagon will send Ukraine a new arms package worth at least $275 million, according to Associated Press. Let's go and have a look at their claims. Actually, in fact, we're going to read a lot of this article because there's an awful lot of interesting stuff in here. So AP says that the weapons in the new package of aid for Ukraine include an infusion of air defense, including high mobility artillery rocket system, HIMARS. So that's HIMARS systems, which is important, not just the rockets or the missiles, as well as 155mm and 105mm artillery rounds, Javelin anti-armor munitions and other equipment and spare parts, US officials say. The weapons will be provided through PDA, Presidential Drawdown Authority, which allows the Pentagon to quickly pull supplies from its shelves to speed them to Ukraine's front line. Trump's upcoming move to the White House has triggered a scramble by the Biden administration to ensure all the congressionally approved funding for Ukraine gets delivered and that Kyiv is in a strong position going into the winter. The Biden administration would have to rush $7.1 billion in weapons from Pentagon stockpiles to spend all of those funds before Trump is sworn in. That includes $4.3 billion from foreign aid bill passed by Congress earlier this year and $2.8 billion still on the books and savings due to Pentagon recalculating the value of systems sent. Asked if the department can get that done before January the 20th, when Trump takes office, Pentagon spokeswoman Sabrina Singh said officials are working to get Ukraine what it needs. She would not confirm the latest drawdown totals. We, quote, we are committed to using the full authority that Congress has allotted to us, Singh said. The only way we can do that is to make sure that our shelves are fully backfilled and stocked. So as our shelves continue to get stocked with equipment, the capabilities that are needed, we draw down from those and send those to Ukraine. In addition to the weapons in the Pentagon drawdown, the State Department said Tuesday that it had authorized a sale to Ukraine of $100 million in unspecified defense equipment and services, including vehicle refurbishment, technical assistance, training, and other related elements of logistics and program support. In contrast to the drawdown, the government of Ukraine will pay for these. This appears to be what this is: a proposed foreign military sale, FMS, to Ukraine for blanket order sustainment of US Army supplied systems and related equipment for the estimated cost of $100 million. Let's just look at that before we go back to the other article. The government of Ukraine has requested to buy equipment and services for refurbishment of vehicles, technical assistance, training, publications, and other related elements of logistics and program support for $100 million. This proposed sale will support the foreign policy goals, national security objectives of the US. Ukraine has an urgent need to strengthen local sustainment capabilities to maintain high operational rates for US provided vehicles and weapons systems. The sustainment support will directly contribute to battlefield effectiveness, overall operational rates, logistics, and reduction of financial burdens as a result of more resilient and rapid repair cycle. The proposed sale of this equipment and support will not alter the basic military balance in the region. Principal contractors will be determined from approved vendors. There are no known offset agreements proposed in connection to the potential sale. So on and now this is what it's going to talk about. Implementation of this proposed sale will not require the assignment of any additional US government or contractor representatives to Ukraine. I thought this would mean, because they recently changed the rules so that US contractors can go to Ukraine, and I thought this would be a green light for this would be a sale essentially of services of contractors to Ukraine, but it says no additional. It will not require the assignment. I don't know if things can hide in that language, such as, it doesn't require it, but if they want extra contractors, they can. Or whether it's just like, there are contractors out there actually already, thank you very much, and no new ones will be needed. There'll be no adverse impact on US defense readiness as a result of the proposed sale. Interesting. Okay, so going back to the AP article then, as part of the wider effort to boost Ukraine, the administration also is on track to disperse its portion of $50 billion in a loan to Ukraine backed by frozen Russian assets before Biden leaves the White House, according to two senior administration officials. The officials, who are not authorized to comment publicly, said the US and Ukraine are now in advanced stages in discussing terms of the loan and are now looking to complete the process of the $20 billion portion of the mammoth loan that the US is backing. The goal is to get it done before the end of the year, one official said. The remaining $30 billion will come from the European Union, the UK, Canada, and Japan, among others. Trump has criticized US support for Ukraine and derided Ukrainian President Zelensky as a salesman, while also praising Putin and touting his good relationship with him. The president-elect has claimed, without explaining how, that he will end the war in Ukraine before his inauguration on January the 20th, saying he will get it resolved very quickly. Last week, when he addressed supporters from a Golden Ballroom at his Mar-a-Lago resort, Trump returned to his pledge, but again offered little information before changing the subject. Quote, "We're going to work very hard on Russia and Ukraine. It's got to stop. Russia and Ukraine's got to stop." He has suggested that Ukraine give up at least some of its Russian-occupied territory to settle the war, saying at a rally in late September that, quote, "If they made a bad deal, it would have been much better. They would have given up a little bit and everybody would be living and every building would be built and every tower would be aging for another 2,000 years. Moving on. Edward Hunter Christie having a go at Jake Sullivan here. So National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan states that the difficult situation on the front lines in Ukraine is not due to lack of weapons, but issues with mobilization. He said that the US has provided tanks, F-16s, HIMARS, and Patriot air defense. Edward Hunter Christie says, a dishonest press conference by Jake Sullivan. He used to be more refined. Now he's outright lying. Quote, "We have provided the F-16s. Really? Who provided the F-16s? The US provided 0 F-16s and slowed down the Europeans from doing so. Not a single honest word about the dangerous delays everybody knows about." Harsh criticism there, but fair, of Jake Sullivan. Biden authorizes sending anti-personnel landmines to Ukraine, reversing a prior policy. US officials cite the need to counter Russia's mass troop attacks in the east. Mines reportedly non-persistent, becoming inactive within weeks. Ukraine pledges to avoid use in populated areas, says Euromaidan Press. And it's interesting that Kriegsforscher, in response to this, said, if you ask me about the next problematic directions that the Ukrainians face, right now I will tell you the next. And he's fighting at the moment in Kursk. 1, we don't have anti-personnel mines to protect our positions. and we need them basically. 2, our infantry cannot sustain a contact with enemy during the fight in trenches, and the solving 1 will help solve 2. So they really need anti-personnel mines, so that's going to be very well received by the Ukrainians. Now, Poland's Foreign Minister Sikorski said that EU's largest countries are prepared to step up financial and military aid to Ukraine if the US reduces support under a potential Trump administration. Europe must take more responsibility for its security, he adds. So that's really good news that Europe looks at least, well, some of Europe looks at least ready to support Ukraine in an increased manner, given Trump almost certainly pulling out support in Ukraine. Zelensky said he's had a telephone conversation with the Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk. He thanked the Polish people for their solidarity with Ukraine from the first days of the full-scale invasion, discussed continuing defence cooperation. Now, the Prime Minister reported that his country is preparing the 45th support package for transfer and has already begun working on the next defence package. Wow, so that's good news. It looks like Poland are going to be an integral component in continued support for Ukraine. Poland has signed a letter of intent with domestic companies to begin producing nitrocellulose and multi-base powders essential for ammunition manufacturing, according to the Polish government report published on November the 18th. And one of the issues has been the bottleneck of nitrocellulose, which is used for making explosives, and I think China is very important in nitrocellulose production. So it's looking to take production away from what places that might be very vulnerable to the winds of global politics, and manufacturing that within Europe is going to be good for Europe, certainly good for Poland there as well. Now, there's a new Taurus missile proposal for Ukraine is to be set to a Bundestag vote. It won't be binding though, but the FDP, the former coalition party, they've pulled out the coalition with Lindner, the leader of the FDP, who was a finance minister for the coalition government, having an argument about Taurus and about finding $3 billion. He was suggesting Taurus should be provided to Ukraine. Olaf Scholz said, no, I want $3 billion or 3 billion euros. And Lindner going, not too sure about that. It's easier we give him Taurus type thing. I think it's something like that. But correct me if I'm wrong. But in leaving the coalition government, they are going to put to a Bundestag vote the provision of Taurus. But it won't be binding, but it would be quite interesting to see how it goes, because there have been previous votes on that haven't gone the way of supplying Taurus, because it had been quite partisan and political. It had been less about the Taurus and more about trying to undermine the government. And so the government voted, generally they kept in line with voting against Taurus being provided. But now I think you'll get a bit of a freer vote, to be honest. Certainly the FDP won't toe the party line there. I don't think so. It could be interesting. Now, Germany to Ukraine is saying that over the last 5 weeks, Germany has provided all of this stuff. I won't go through all of it. You can see it there. Interesting how many drones are being provided, and many I don't know. Golden Eagle, 60 Golden Eagle, 12 Hornets, 100 RQ-35 Hydrons. I've seen those, and 20 Vector drones, 2 VT-4 Russian drones, and 120 Songbird drones. So all aerial drones there. That's an awful lot. 4 Panzerhowitzer 2000 self-propelled guns, 7 howitzer tubes for the M109, 47 FFG MRAPs, and we're going to talk about them in a second. 8 Caracal air assault vehicles, light vehicles that you can drop from helicopters and use in paratrooper assault type things. TRML-4D radar, mine clearing tanks, mine plows, bridge laying tank, Oshkosh transporters, border protection vehicles, and loads of shells, ammunition, and all sorts. They've also pledged more drones as well, 43 different drones, 40 drone detection systems, and 14 tracked and remote controlled infantry vehicles. So some ground drones by the looks of it. Interesting. So Germany's still consistently giving an awful lot of kit to the Ukrainians. Now, talking about these MRAPs, these FFG, Germany to Ukraine has a piece on this. As things stand, just 26 of the 400 FFG MRAPs pledged in batches since 2023 have been delivered. So what is going on with the delay there? And it appears, am I right in saying it's actually possibly due to a US issue? Quick overview, apart from the fact that the choice of vehicles makes not a lot of sense considering alternative options, the first 66 of them were delivered without any mine protection at all, although they are announced as armoured combat vehicles. In addition, compared to sales offers of the US-based model, the BAT UMG, the German government pays more than €400,000 extra per vehicle to have the final assembly of them carried out by a German company. And to top it all off, the deliveries of MRAPs are falling far behind the expectations of the German MOD. While there's already been endless debates about the first points mentioned, and I would not rather bother you with statements like announced as armoured combat vehicles, but the manufacturer says they never intended for combat, we finally have an official answer as to why the delivery of the vehicles is so delayed. After all, only 26 of the 400 pledged MRAPs have been delivered so far, and the project was supposed to be completed by the end of the year. So 26 of 400 by the end of the year, unlikely. Julian Röpke from Bild was asking, and the German MOD said shifted the blame away from itself as well as from FFG and onto US authorities, for which have to approve arms exports to other countries in advance. This is because the FFG APCs and FFG MRAPs are not independently developed vehicles, but only licensed produced BAT UMG IMVs. So these are an American vehicle, an infantry mobility vehicle, turned into a mine-resistant ambush protection one, but basically under license, so they need to get permission from the US. Marketed under a different name by the German company FFG Flensburger Fahrzeugbau Gesellschaft MBH. According to the German Ministry of Defense, the export was approved late by US authorities, which ultimately delayed work on the vehicles in Germany. So there you go. That is apparently what is taking place there. 3-month delay in delivery and a week October in which only 4 instead of at least 20 FFG MRAPs were delivered has led to only 26 of them being delivered so far. Even if we assume the minimum goal will be reached again in November and December, it's very likely that only around 70 vehicles will be delivered by the end of the year, possibly even less, which is not good news for the Ukrainians there. Now, again, German aid to Ukraine talks about the Zuzana 2. This is a self-propelled gun produced by the Czechs. Now, according to is it the Czechs? No, it's Slovakian, actually, I think. According to Alexander Pivnenko, commander of the National Guard of Ukraine, Zuzana 2 self-propelled artillery systems are now being deployed with National Guard units in Ukraine. Whilst it is, of course, possible that some of the few operational systems already in service have been moved to the NG to an NGU unit, this could also indicate new deliveries. So there are some Zuzana 2s that are due to be, I think, bought off the Slovakians, but then there's some rumours about it being a bit delayed because Fitzo and Support for Ukraine not being so forthcoming anymore. But it's already known that for a couple of months that at least 4 additional Zuzana 2 self-propelled artillery systems financed by Germany, Denmark and Norway, worth €23 million, will be delivered by the end of the year. So it could be that they have finally finding their way to the front line. South Korea did not contribute to the Czech initiative to purchase artillery shells for the Ukrainian armed forces, according to the Czech government commissioner for the restoration of Ukraine. So just an interesting one there. Hopefully that means that South Korea have a lot of artillery ammo to spare. And now, after North Korean troops were sent to Russia, Putin gifted over 70 animals from the Moscow Zoo to North Korea. Bears, lions, yaks and birds were sent to Pyongyang Zoo. This is Vladimir Putin's gift to the Korean people, said the North Korean authorities. Wow. That's what you get for 9 million shells. A bunch of yaks. Good deal. Right, okay, I think there's other stuff going North Korea's way, of course. Right, Denmark. So we're moving on to Ukrainian defence industry itself. Denmark is allocating €130 million to Ukraine's defence industry. That's been announced by the Danish Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen, who was in Kyiv yesterday. According to Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, the Ukrainian defence industry has already produced a combined total of 2.5 million mortar and artillery shells this year. That is a massive ramping up from its own defence industry, and that's impressive. And it's really good to see mortar bombs there as well, because they really desperately need loads of them. It's something Andrew Perpetua always talks about. Now, Ukrainian Luty and Maroka Kamikaze drones, which were financed by the support of, again, Denmark, have been shown during a joint press briefing of the Danish Prime Minister and Zelensky. Denmark will allocate $135.7 million for the development of the Ukrainian defense industry. So here are some of the drones financed by the Danish there. So good stuff. And here we have no reports saying Zelensky and Frederiksen met with Ukrainian manufacturers of long-range drones and the soldiers using them. They reviewed drones purchased by Denmark's support following the Danish model, with funding allocated for contracts already made by a state-owned enterprise. And Zelensky's also said that Ukrainian FPV drones are already able to shoot down Russian reconnaissance drones. We've seen that as they hit recon drones like the Orlan 10, the Zala and the Supercam, and they smash into them and the IED on board explodes. Now they are looking to a solution as they're planning on shooting down Shaheds with FPV drones as well. Heard a rumor about that previously. It's interesting that Zelensky's now formally mentioned this. And that could be yet another string to the bow of their defense against the Shaheds. They are pretty successful at taking down Shaheds at the moment. Now, Ukraine have developed a drone FPV carrier. It can carry up to 6 FPV drones. It looks pretty impressive there. That is, one dropping off the wing, or lots dropping off the wing, I presume. That is, I wonder if that's also acting as a repeater, whether it has to stay around to repeat the signal to those smaller drones. Otherwise, you'd just be flying those drones straight from the operator. So this is dropping them off, one would presume, further behind enemy lines, and then you'd have to make sure that signals could get to those FPV drones. Anyway, that's enough from me. Really appreciate your support today and every day. Thank you very much for that support. Take care, and I will speak to you soon.